Alright, so 254 of you said show the car, so the first part of this video will be just me going over the basics of the car, like what's done to it and whatnot, and then the second part I'll go back over things in a little more detail for people who really want to like know what's going on and whatnot. So I'm gonna start from front to back and kind of work through it. We'll start with the intake, kind of just go a little in depth with it. So if most people don't already know, air goes through this grill here, at least for GTIs and Rs, and then goes up into this box, comes over into the stock box. I cut this out, kind of looked ghetto, but fuck it. And then I cut this out, which is down, you can't see that, but it's cut out here, like how it is over here. And that increased it by a good bit. As for the box, just deleted the snow filter or snow guard, and then a AFE filter, forged intake tube, and then a BMS throttle or fucking turbo inlet, whatever. So get out of the light. So downpipe, eBay downpipe, it's 2-piece. It's fallen off a couple times. That's why it's burnt here. And you can kind of see the plastic burnt there. TPC-20, basic turbo, Parts Canada turbo. One of the first ones that were built from them. Haven't had any issues on it. It's been pretty much it's been through a lot, let's say that. Under this, RS3 coil packs, and then Brisk ER12 spark plugs. They're gapped to 0.020, I believe, is what it says on the sheet. I'll update the sheet too to get it a little more updated nowadays. Most of you, or some of you, might not have this, but this is the secondary air injection. Let's leave that, because why not? It's sitting over there somewhere. Oil, I use Liqui Moly Molygen. It works meh, I've figured out. I'll be switching to AMSOIL European, which is the black bottle, not the red one. The red one sucks compared to the black bottle. Not the gray one, the black one, to make that clear. Charge pipes. A lot of you guys ask about charge pipes. My charge pipes are completely stock. Haven't touched them. Don't really feel like touching them, because why not? And then intercooler, the JD Eurosport front mount. It's the TR8 core. I don't have the TR10 core. I'm thinking about getting it, but it's kind of not something on the list right now. I skipped over this before, but I also have the high pressure fuel pump internals from Autotech. Alright, moving on to suspension and tires. So up front, I run a 245 45 17 Nitto NT555R, the Gen 1. They're pretty okay, to say the least. Those are on the 17-inch Koenig, which is the 17 by 8. I think they're like 16 pounds or some shit. For the rear, I just run a Federal 595. I think it's a 225 40 17. And then for suspension, I run the K-Sport coilovers, the Pro coilovers, which kind of, I'm realizing now, have a shitty spring rate. A little too soft in the rear, so it squats kind of hard. And when it squats hard, it picks up the front end. So I'm kind of messing with the dampening now to try and get it to not squat as hard. But moving on to the interior. This is how you guys mostly see it. So access port would normally go here. Dash cam, radar detector, stock shifter. It's got the DKM clutch, the stage 2 clutch. Holds 460 wheel torque, so that's plenty for stock motor stuff. The shifter is completely stock, so stock shifter, whatnot, and then stock shifting assembly. So I don't run a short throw or anything like that, so it's a full throw. This is how I normally race and whatnot. So passenger seat, I keep that shit in here all the time. I haven't taken it out yet. Rear, no rear seats, no spare. I keep all the trim and everything in here because I don't want it looking like a fucking Honda. I do run the Walbro 450. I don't run a PM4 yet. Say that. As for like an exhaust setup, it's just straight stock catback. I do have it cut just about here, just before it's straight, and then it curves out like this and then back, just where you'd kind of put like a resonator delete. I have it cut there, and then sometimes I put the turn down on it. For the TPC 20, the exhaust housing doesn't actually benefit much from putting the turn down on it, so I mostly keep the stock catback on it, so it's kind of restrictive and has a little more backflow to spool it up a little quicker. Actually, the other night I was doing logs, and I got it to what we have it set for full boost at 33.5, so 3350. It was at full boost, which honestly is pretty fucking good for like a TDO. I think it's a TDO 6 compressor wheel and a TDO 5 turbine wheel. Nick from TPC could probably correct me on that. But now I'll really start delving deep into whatnot. So turbo, went over that just now. Intake. So stock, I ran stock for a while. I cut this out. It didn't do much because obviously the hood seals just about right here. So if you cut this out and you don't have this, it doesn't do shit. So when I cut this out, it started to max out the stock injectors. So I duct taped this off for a little bit. I now have it removed because we went down from E60 to E50, which gave us a little more headroom. Intake, I haven't found anything better. I did have a short ram, like just a big ass cone on the end of this. Sounds pretty cool, but it doesn't do shit. So I went back to this. A lot of people ask why I still run the stock box. When I was at the dyno, we actually tested it. The stock box made 463, which is what the car currently makes. And then when we took this out, so we just unbolted this clamp and moved it over a little bit, it actually dynoed like 443 or something like that. So like 20 wheel less with just like an open straight cone or like open straight tube without even a filter on it. So it kind of helps to have not all of the flow at the current moment. Suspension, I've been changing the dampening up a lot. I had it really loose up front. The K-Sport coilovers actually have a 36 degree dampening. So I had it at 11 in the front and then like 28 in the rear, just to get it to like pivot a little bit, so the front end would pick up and be able to pick up just like here, like my tire, the tire would be the circle in my hand. The chassis would move up before the tire actually moves up with the suspension. Turns out I was doing it wrong, according to Mr. Sneaky Tune. And now I have it all the way stiff in the front, and then in the rear it's at 31. I just changed that recently. It seems to help a little bit for 40 rolls, but I haven't really tested it too much. What else? Downpipe. I don't know why everyone says that you need a fucking big ass downpipe. You really don't. The eBay downpipe was literally the first thing I bought for the car, like actually. And this has been the same downpipe ever since I bought it like 2 fucking years ago now. Haven't had a single issue with it, other than it like popping off and whatnot. But I mean, it's eBay, so it's not gonna fit perfect. But as for like cracks and like the welds actually breaking, because I know like some CTS kits and whatnot, the welds break on the downpipe. But now I'm gonna get like kind of super technical. So in the front, the correct way to measure ride height is to measure it from the ground here to the shortest point on the chassis, which would be just about the end of this lip here for the side skirt. So you measure it from the front, so behind the front tire, and then for the rear you would measure it in front of the rear tire. Currently the car has a quite amount of rake, so I need to fix that by either getting a taller tire in the rear or raising the rear in general. Because currently the lowest point on the car is actually the passenger side front tire, which is like I think 5 centimeters lower than the driver's side. So the car is kind of like tilted like this and like that. I try to compensate it for when I'm in the car, but I don't personally weigh enough to have it shift enough to make it even out, because it's like 13 over here and then 13.6 or 7 for the passenger rear, and then over here it's like 16, and then when I'm in the car 15, and then for the rear it's like 16.7 or 16.6, and then again the rear doesn't really change all that much for ride height. But what else? Trans. I just rebuilt the trans. The 4th gear fork went out, probably from shifting 2 to 3 too hard. Because shifting 3 to 4 doesn't bend the fork. All you're doing is moving the fork from 3rd to 4th. What makes it bend is when you shift 2 to 3, because then you're changing forks. I would show you on the shift tower, but I'm sure some of you already know that. What else? Go a little more in depth over the intake. I know I'm kind of rambling and going over things again, but I feel like people would still have questions. Cutting this out increased the injectors by about 200 to 400 on a given time, or at a given RPM, which is quite a lot if you guys don't watch your injector pulse width. On Cobb it goes by like thousands, which is really like milliseconds. So it's, for example, like 8, like it's say 8,000, but it's actually 8 milliseconds, which is quite a lot. You don't really want to be seeing 95 9500 on your direct injectors. But I mean, if you're trying to really push it, sometimes you got to do it. But what else? For the trans, again, I rebuilt it completely OEM. It's no dog box or anything, so it's all synchro. I did technically upgrade the forks because I had a bronze 5.6 fork, and the parts that I ordered for it came in as all steel. So they've been revised and now they're all steel. So now I have a steel 5.6, which doesn't really fucking matter because by the time I shift into 5th, I'm already going 140. So it doesn't matter too much. But things for the future, charge pipes, definitely. But like starting from like what I'm doing to like what I'm doing first to throughout the end, brakes. I did a poll, I'm sure some of you saw it, for the 2-piece rotors. They'd knocked the rotational mass by like 11 to 15 pounds, which is kind of a lot, but then again, for just front rotors, it'd be $800, whereas to go completely OEM again, I'd be set back like $500. And that's like including pads and shit. So it's kind of a toss right there. After that, I need the PM4, definitely, because I need to max out that 450. I went back to try and find like things we could do that doesn't cost $674 for a PM4. I saw the ground trick, which is you take the ground from the pump sensor and ground it directly to the chassis, right where the pump is. That kind of gives you a little bit of headroom as for duty cycle, but I haven't seen it increase at all, so it's not something I would recommend or whatnot. There's another thing we're gonna try, I think, whether or not I just do that or just get a PM4. But if one of you guys want to try it, it's the solid state relay. So you'd get like a relay from a Chrysler, and you would you'd kind of wire it up to be, you'd wire it up so it would bounce off of the OEM controller, then it would go to the battery and then back to the pump. I'm sure someone that knows more electrical stuff than me could probably understand what I'm trying to say, but yeah, so the brakes, PM4. After that, I need a different turbo to get anywhere over 470, because the TPC-20 quite literally can't. I'm sure like if you go on like race fuel like MS-109 or something, you can go to like 470 pretty easily, but on E85 and whatnot, 470 is really your cap. Currently, we're running about 33 out of it. It can, completely pinned, make 36.4. So keep in mind the compressor map for a TD06 turbine wheel, especially in the stock GTI housing, it doesn't really work, to say the least. Because around 6,800 RPM, it'll choke itself out. So you really need that 38 housing in order to get those higher RPMs. After the turbo, I'll probably build the motor at that point. So that's the basic overview of the car. I'll gladly make another video or something if you guys didn't get everything that you necessarily wanted. Just either shoot me a DM or just fucking write it in the comments or some shit, because I'll probably post this on YouTube because it's probably too long for Instagram at this point. I got a couple other video ideas, like how to make like an IS-20 car quick and how to make like an IS-38 car quick. But I mean, a lot of those things are not necessarily long. Like I could probably cover them in like a minute. But if you guys wanted me to go a little more in depth with it, I could definitely do that. But that's been the car.